I think it's basically put nicely from Dogen Zenji, this Buddhist philosopher. He says, in the mundane, nothing is sacred. In the sacred, nothing is mundane. Welcome back, everybody, to Man Uncaved. Today's episode, we are going to set sail. We're going to set sail and navigate many different lands. And the idea is to explore our own perspective, to explore our own sense of consciousness, to expand our own sense of consciousness. Again, it is within that the shifts of perspective tend to live. And within those shifts of perspective is actually transformation, is where transcendence is. It's where healing is, when we expand our own visions. Let me put this into place, that to understand that we by nature are storytellers. All sacred texts are written in story format. From the ways of the cross with Jesus, we have the hieroglyphics, we have cave paintings, we have the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Joseph Campbell and the Hero's Journey. Carl Jung once said, man and his symbols, and it is within these stories is great teachings and great messagings, that to take the literal meaning of a word is actually the lowest meaning you can give that word. There is a spirit beyond those words. There is a message to receive. I think it's basically put nicely from Dogen Zenji, this Buddhist philosopher. He says, in the mundane, nothing is sacred. In the sacred, nothing is mundane. And it is within the fault line between the sacred and the mundane is the separation from spirit and deeper consciousness. And that is that journey that I like to refer to as the alignment, that we are aligning the spirit and the ego, if you can put into those forms, where we have lost our way. Now, again, going back into stories, we've heard stories such as, the tree of knowledge, where the origin where man has fallen from grace, and that tree of knowledge, we've relied more on our thinking. And it is within that story, the tree of knowledge, that where man has fallen from grace, we can also see this portrayed where we have relied more on our own thoughts, good, evil, right, wrong. And within that engagement of our own human experience, it's thought versus our own sacred heart, where our divinity lives, where love lives beyond the fear. And that 18 inches from our mind to our heart is where that journey lives, called transformation. Start to pan out and look at all the parables and symbols. It's a pointer. They're pointing to transformation. And looking at how can we make the everyday existence, the daily grinds, the chores we must do to complete can seem so mundane and challenge us in our own growth and our own understanding. And we get challenged within those concepts. And healing is start to understand this from a broader lens. Standing within these parables, again, this simple ideas to understand the existence, even tattoos in themselves. These were initiations. These were initiations and rituals taken to transform boys to men. And so that idea of moving in from a boy to becoming a man, we must go through pain. And that's the symbolism of these tattoos. We've seen that in the crucifixion of Jesus in itself, where he is being crucified in this pain. And as you watch him go through the grieving process, Father, why me, to the acceptance and the letting go. And he is grieving his ego. He is grieving the child within to recognize the spirit of who he is. We see this portrayed in movies, Lion King, the character overcoming their own conflicts, their own challenges of life to triumph and evolve, to grow, to learn. And of course, this is not an easy process. There is pain there. There is loss there. There is fear there. And these symbols and parables within these stories are really pointing to the rebirthing process. And many of you don't know, I majored in psychology. I also have majored in religious studies. So we took a look at a lot of these sacred texts from Christianity, Judaism. We've looked at Native American spiritual teachings, Eastern philosophies, and broke them down into discussions and to look at the deeper meanings behind them and seeing the teachings of within these sacred texts. And they will always be written into any transformational journey is these three major ideas of what is called birth, death, and rebirth. E.O. Wilson is a biologist. He said if you take a organism out of its natural habitat, it will lead to social and psychological breakdowns. Since we become so separated from nature and existence beyond Wi-Fi buzzing our nervous system and overhead lights and cubicles and work and buildings that kept us more separated, we've lost ways with understanding nature. As Einstein said, look deep into nature and you will understand everything better. The seasons of change and understanding the greater meanings of fall with the grieving process and the death of winter to the rebirth of spring and the sharing of the summertime. Those big meanings would help teach us as a species what it is to live. The yeoman farmer that used to be out, the dad and his son tilling the land, would actually see birth and death in 24 hours. The sun that comes up, the sun that sets, and that is the death of the day. So there was much more happening, more spiritual connection in life. And speaking of death, from indigenous tribes looking at certain things like plant medicine and with psychedelics and the ego death. There's tribes actually in Africa that take extreme amounts of ibogaine or mushrooms, and what they're doing is to actually simulate an actual death. I mean, they take it in such high quantities to actually simulate the death, to become reborn again. And really understanding the ego, just to put a couple words on that, if anybody's read The Course of Miracle, the objective of the ego is to keep us separated from the spirit of who we are. And I tend to make a joke about, I once saw this t-shirt that said, your ego is not your amigo. However, my thoughts is it should be, because it is in alignment with an understanding that ego, those identities we've attached to, we want to get to know those. The idea of finding the sacred in the mundane is connected to a lot of great lofty teachings, from religions, Zen Buddhism, to Western psychology with positive psychology. So these have been interlaced within the fabrics of our existence for 5,000 plus years. Shifting our thoughts, the idea of I have to I get to. The beauty in the idea of I get to. It could be as simple, it could be hard for a lot of people. I have to work today. I get to work today. And we've heard these shifting of a couple words, and it actually stimulates a different experience to it. And so within that, again, is taking these mundane tasks, these daily tasks, and bringing a deeper meaning that could be more sacred to us. And that's the whole idea behind this transformational journey, because it can be challenging, especially as we are walking through difficulties, dark nights of the soul. Life itself can be just challenging. Again, the daily grinds, and what we have to do within human existence to make it and survive can be challenging. But the idea is that if we can consciously infuse these daily tasks with a greater meaning and connect it to our own personal goals and value, like living in a tidy home has actually no meaning in of itself. However, when we bring it into a perspective of a broader goal and aligning it, the mundane, so that it's in an accord with our own passions. And maybe that's what can lighten the journey and lighten the load of our dailies and the existence. And then that brings in deeper questions. Where do we find our passions? Sometimes we're so stuck in the mundane and that we've lost connection with our own passions. So this could include taking time with ourselves, finding what those things are. Of course, surrounding ourselves with supportive community. Now, community, friends, 10 friends, it could be 3, it could be 5 that you really can connect with. Family, I love the idea of working with other men that will explore and challenge with you. Of course, men and community that is in alignment with purpose and challenging themselves so they can also challenge you in your own personal growth. And then there's a sense of accountability there. And I think there's some beauty within finding these little sacred moments within our daily. Look, you're not going to catch them all. We will get stuck in our own way. I will get stuck in my own way. I'll just tell you that, to be honest, where I don't see the sacredness. I don't take that moment and that beautiful pause to witness the beauty that might be going around, or could lighten the load a little bit, could bring a little breathing room for your daily existence. Ability to relax into the day instead of being tense. I find myself, at times just tense, body's tense through the day, getting from A to B. And I live in LA, so there's much traffic. Moments within that where I got to really explore myself, my own thoughts, right? Where I want to be there. I want to be there already. All these people are in the way. So I just found myself colliding with everything. Colliding with the drivers, colliding with traffic, colliding with so much. And I caught myself spiraling into this complaining and blaming and being irritated and angry. One, grasping for some sense of control. It was this sense of superiority, that I am more superior than traffic and that the world needs to operate the way that I want the world to operate. And it gave me a moment to catch myself, to breathe into it, and I could make that change right there. Like I've said before, transformation is instantaneous. It just gave me a moment to relax. So finding beautiful moments where the sacred lives, the spirit lives in our daily existence, and not so attaching to this mundane of it. And just to put out the disclaimer, gentle, because we're not going to catch all of it. We're not sitting on a mountaintop all day long where we get a chance to do this. We're all contemporary. We live in this daily lives here in the world today, in society today. So there will be some challenges. So it's a practice. Again, what is your practice is the big tool. That one with me sitting in traffic, that was my practice. If I keep complaining and I keep coming irritable and I keep coming angry at what is, and that idea of the isness of the moment, I was trying to rearrange it. I was trying to rearrange it to make it more comfortable for myself. Comfortable for myself is the way that I want it to be and the way that it should, quote unquote, be according to me. And there it was, the letting go and the pain of that experience. Now, again, pain is all relative, but the letting go in that moment was the letting go of control and move into acceptance. And that could be challenging and painful for most of us. I'm hoping this helps people, because this is something I am striving for and working through and practicing in my own daily life, is finding those beautiful moments. Please let me know what you think of this episode. It really helps me a lot. Please leave reviews if you do like it, and maybe it brings just a nice inhale and exhale through your day. Again, my name is Coyle, and this is Man Uncaved. We need to come out of hiding.